Hi everybody, welcome to the show. I was just asking Pete if the lens cap was off. That's happened before, not to us mind you, but it does happen. Welcome to the show. Either you're watching it on Facebook or you're listening to it as a iPod, a podcast somewhere out there. Thank you for doing that. And thank you for all your comments. I appreciate each and every one of them, and I do try to get back to everyone. Although I noticed the other day on the Facebook page, it kind of said something about we edit the responses and only publish the relevant ones. I mean, how would they know what was relevant and what was not relevant? I don't know. Anyway, this whole technology thing is a mystery to me. Before we get into the news of the day, happy birthday if you're having a birthday. Happy wedding anniversary. Ah, there's a good one. Pete?
What's that?
1945. It's a good year, 1945. 1945. The Swallow Sidecar Company, which was headed by William Lyons, later Sir William, agrees to change the name to Jaguar. Because that's how Jaguar started out. They made sidecars for motorcycles from such a beginning. The Wright brothers first file a patent for a flying machine on this day in 1903. Granted 3 years later. Took a long time. I suppose they were a bit sceptical about that. Elvis Presley begins his final concert tour. 1977 was the year he died, in fact. 1957, the US Army sells the last of its homing pigeons. They were a real tactic in war. They were very useful, homing pigeons. Imagine, Pete's got a ex-World War II Army Jeep. What you want is little, because you've got the shovel on the side and the gun rack and the pick and the axe.
The real deal.
The real deal. And the decals on the bonnet, you know, the star and the US Army number on the bonnet. But that wouldn't be bad. A little cage with an ex-US Army homing pigeon in it. Ah, dear, why not? Why not? The real deal. Elijah Otis installs his first elevator. Now, what year was that? 1857. It was installed in a building in 488 Broadway in New York City. On this day, the very first elevator. The Battle of Okinawa, pardon me, again 1945, the Battle of Okinawa, US Navy ships bombed the Japanese island of Okinawa in preparation for the Allied invasion, which would soon follow. It would in fact become the largest battle in the Pacific War of World War II. A bloody, awful battle. Iwo Jima was another terrible island to take back. That was 1945. 1921, Germany announces that it is unable to meet its Great War reparation payments. Whoops. And that was sort of setting the place up for the next date here, which was 1933. Enabling Act, it was called. The German Reichstag, or Chancellery, grants Adolf Hitler dictatorial powers. London's first tram car, designed by Mr. Train of New York. Interesting. It begins operating on this day in 1861. First London tram car. US President Ronald Reagan introduces Strategic Defence Initiative, otherwise known as Star Wars. That was in 1983. Australian opera star Dame Nellie Melba reveals the secret of her now famous toast. Melba toast. I don't know, have you tried that, Pete?
Never heard of it.
Well, I've heard of Melba toast, but I don't know what it was. I like toast and cheese. That's good. Oh, golly, that's good. 1490, the first edition of the Torah, a code of Jewish religious law, is published. 1490. First airplane lands at the US capital of Washington, D.C., District of Columbia, 1922. And Elizabeth Taylor, bless her heart, English-American actress Cleopatra, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, businesswoman, humanitarian, serial bride, married 6 times to 7 men. 6 times to 7 men. Dies of a heart attack at just 79. Well, I can understand that. A heart attack. Yes, Joan Crawford, Mummy Dearest. The actress, born in San Antonio, Texas, 1905. Lee Kuan Yew, a marvellous man, Lee Kuan Yew. I had him on the show at old 5DN several times when he was in Australia. Very talkative, very chatty, very nice man. 2015, Lee Kuan Yew, father of modern Singapore and first Prime Minister of Singapore, dies of pneumonia at the age of 91. He was born in 1923. And the soap opera, The Bold and the Beautiful, premieres on this day in 1987. And I think it's still going. The Bold and the Beautiful. My dear mother-in-law would not miss that. Her life revolved around watching The Bold and the Beautiful. All those chiseled young men. No, we won't go there. The beginning of Ramadan. And that's interesting because Easter's coming up and Passover is coming up. All the religious observances around the same time of the year. As I say, interesting. So is this. The Adelaide Town Hall, very traditional place, infested these days, obviously, by a lot of woke individuals. The latest is they want to get rid of the opening ceremony, I suppose you'd call it, when the council meeting is convened. They would have a little thank you to William Light, who was the surveyor and the man who planned Adelaide, set it out, and it's quite wonderfully, thoughtfully done. Remarkable. He must have been a remarkable man. The city's a square mile, and then around that you have a ring of parklands, which are fantastic, sacrosanct in fact, much beloved parklands. And then there's another ring of kind of inner suburbs, and then you've got another ring of trees, which is where I am up here. Very cleverly done, very well thought out, so I can understand them including William Light in their ceremony. They also thank the men and women who served in the armed forces to protect Australia and to keep it free. That's appropriate. Well, William Light's mention is gone, and so too is the mention of our servicemen and women. And of course the Lord's Prayer, that's got to go, that's gone. But guess what? The welcome to country and the thanks to the original tribes people stays. I heard a lovely send-up of that the other day via a very, very attractive Native American woman, stand-up comic. And she got up there, and before she got into her her shtick, she first said, I have to thank the original owners of this land. They were the Cheyenne, and then the Sioux. The Sioux, I think, were before the Cheyenne. Oh yes, and the Apaches. I'm pretty sure they were first. And before them, I think there were the Creeks. And oh yeah, the Arapahoes. Oh, they definitely need a mention. And hang on, before them, there were the Neanderthals. So this was their land. And a big thank you to the Neanderthals, but I mustn't forget the original landowners, the buffalo. A warm welcome to all the buffalo, and thank you for this wonderful, wonderful land and stage I'm talking to you from. Very funny, very funny. And she got a laugh. Of course, here they'd throw tomatoes at you, I suspect. Tony says, if somebody hasn't told you already, it was Livingstone, not Watson, the immortal line uttered by Stanley in Darkest Africa. It was Dr. Livingstone, I presume. Very good, Tony. And Rob, thank you both. The encyclopedia has never let us down. Pete, never will either. Finland is the happiest country in the world. Did you know that? Finland is the happiest country in the world. Australia, with our wonderful climate and beaches and freedom and opportunity and everything, we're only number 12. Number 12. The most unhappy place in the world is Afghanistan, closely followed by Lebanon. Afghanistan, by the way, who's lecturing us on climate change. I'll tell you about that later. And for the second year, they continue to refuse to let girls go to high school. And who said, make love, not war? It was a very popular saying around the 60s or 70s. War must be more cheery than I remember it. Russia has gone from 80th spot on the list to the 70th spot. Jumped 10 places. This is from the annual happiness index. Oh, and by the way, keep away from Africa. They are definitely miserable. Definitely miserable. Now, something doesn't add up here. Christians. This is sort of the headline. Right? Christians clash with trans or transsexuals. Police involved. Demonstration turns violent, ugly. Now listen. It doesn't add up. Transgender people represent 0.17% of the population. 1,260 people ticked that box in the last census. That is in the entire country. This is a statistically insignificant number of people. You don't light up the Melbourne Town Hall in trans colours or the Sydney Opera House similarly. It shouldn't dominate the news bulletins on the ABC. 1,260 people in the entire country. Have we totally lost our minds, or at least our perspective? And if you listen to some of the critics, apparently there are schools where drag queens are invited into the classroom to discuss their lifestyle with 6-year-olds. This demonstration in the Sydney suburb of Belfield, it's a sort of a southwestern suburb, was because Mark Latham was about to make a speech at the local church. I'd be very interested to have a little look at what he was going to say, or what he has been saying on the subject. I find it hard to believe that with 1,260 trans people in the entire country, according to the last census, there would even be enough people at that suburban church to stage a protest. Would there be 1, maybe 3 people? Hardly enough to bring out the police force, I wouldn't have thought. Like I say, it doesn't add up. I'm fond of adding things up, or trying to. President Xi from China visits Putin in Moscow. I would have loved to have been a fly on that wall. China cannot provide, well, when I say cannot, it certainly hasn't provided lethal weapons to Russia. Because I think they're really smart people, the Chinese. They know that if they did that, the rest of the world would unleash sanctions upon them, which would be crippling. Now, China is one of the great trading nations of the world. It doesn't wish to offend the free world. It wishes to trade with the free world. Quite right. So I don't know what Putin will get out of the visit, apart from a few comforting platitudes. But who knows what he's after. Rupert Murdoch is getting married for the 4th time. I think he's trying to set some sort of mogul record. Or maybe it's the 5th time. I do lose track. God bless him. He's 92 years of age, and I still have great respect for him. For one man to grow a global brand from virtually nothing, News Limited, virtually nothing from a start that he got here in Adelaide. In fact, it was only in the last few years that the head office of News Limited, the global head office, has been moved to wherever it's been moved to in America. I don't pretend that he is not a polarising character. He is. But credit where credit is due. He would be... I've only interviewed him once. Very private man, doesn't like being interviewed. But I'd love to sit down with him and talk to him. Susan says, you think the Liberals need a star? But what or who is that? Susan, I don't know. It's somebody who lights up the room.
Charisma.
Charisma, yeah. Pete literally lights up the room. Various people have done it in various ways, and it's not good looks. It is, as Pete says, charisma. It's chemistry. Churchill had it. John Kennedy had it. Andrew Peacock had it. John Howard still has it. Bob Hawke definitely had it. In state politics, there was Mike Rann. And Don Dunstan, of course. He oozed star quality. The system is probably not designed to promote the most able, the most charismatic, or the most capable. It's probably designed to get rid of them, because the system is really designed by the hoi polloi, if I can use that rather unpleasant expression. The people who want to make it but never will, but think they should. Or as one person said, how do you soar like an eagle when you're surrounded by turkeys? The Pharmacy Guild of Australia is upset, angry at Woolworths and Coles for wanting to place pharmacies in their stores. Now, I don't see for the life of me what's wrong with that. Supermarkets have been trying for years to get the right to include pharmacy, but they do it in America quite successfully and without any problems. The pharmacy people seem to think that Woolworths will start off offering an online pharmaceutical facility of some kind, and that'll be the thin end of the wedge. I mean, everyone in business, in just about every category you can think of, is subject to competition. Why not the Pharmacy Guild? I can't see why not. And I will leave you with this one, because it really got up my nose, this one. The UN, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC. What a panic-stricken pile of nonsense. Panic-fueled hyperbole, 500 bloody pages of it, I believe. The head of the UN, Antonio Guterres, totally agrees with every word, but then again, of course he would. Of course he would. Now, who exactly is on this governmental panel on climate change? You can look it up. I did. It's interesting. Oh, there is the unhappiest country in the world, top of the list. Afghanistan, Albania, Algeria, Argentina, Bangladesh, Brazil, Botswana, Central African Republic, the Congo, Costa Rica, Cyprus, Egypt, Guatemala, Haiti, Honduras, Iraq and Iran, the Marshall Islands, Malta, Nigeria, Papua New Guinea. No offence, but what a ratbag collection of countries. No offence, but for God's sake, lecturing Western democracies when most of these countries are dependent upon Western aid of one kind or another. Are they trying to save the world or destroy it? Then there's the Climate Council. Oh yes, Tim Flannery. You remember him? Tim Flannery, Tim, it will never rain again, Flannery. They all agree. These people are charged with the task of giving independent advice to government on climate. Independent advice. These people are not independent. Their advice is not scientific, it's political. Their background, a lot of these people, their background is political science. Talk about a stacked deck. The target of this new hysterical document is, without a doubt, Western democracies and their economies, totally ignoring the great polluters of China, India, Africa, Indonesia, South Korea. I believe their advice is biased and irresponsible. But it's even more irresponsible probably to listen to it. The ABC, of course, gave it great importance and prominence, but you would expect that. I heard a lot of interviews with people on this document, this Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and the Climate Council, and not one journalist asks the simple question, where's the emergency? Can you prove what you're saying? Is it an opinion or is it science? Demonstrate that what you say is correct. On what science do you base your dire predictions? You are basically predicting the end of the world as we know it if the temperature was to change by 1.5 degrees, which it often does from morning till afternoon in most cities and countries of the world. On what do you base that dire prediction? You see, we don't have journalists anymore. We've got people who follow the script. Just put these fools on the air and let them unchallenged say whatever they like. That's not journalism, that's disgraceful. Whether it's good luck or good management, Australia is in a very good position, apart from being the 12th happiest place on the planet. Our contribution to global emissions is so small, 1.3%. It doesn't matter what we do makes no difference at all to the problem. These fools would be quite happy for no good reason, no good purpose, to destroy the economy, ruin our quality of life, and set the country back 100 years. Are we seriously going to let them do that without even asking a question? No thought as to exactly what underpins the prosperity, and indeed our position on the list of happiest countries in the world. Thank you very much for viewing the Court of Public Opinion. I hope to see you tomorrow. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux. Peter and I will be back. Believe in yourself, and goodbye for now.